இன்றைய முக்கிய செய்திகள்.
Now we're joined by Rauff Hakeem, leader of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress and member of parliament. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Very concerning scenes emerging there from Colombo. It seems to be a lot of chaos right now and uncertainty. We do know that the Prime Minister, who's now the acting president, has declared a state of emergency in Sri Lanka.
Yes, the announcement has come a while ago, but then it has been totally against the expectations of the protesters. They had throughout maintained that the president was going to resign, whereas now he has only temporarily appointed his prime minister as acting president, and the president still retains office. And this is one subterfuge that Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe and Gotabaya Rajapaksa together have done, and they have pulled wool over the eyes of the protesters. That is why they are angry and are storming. So are you saying that
Gotabaya Rajapaksa has not resigned yet? That because we were just waiting for some formal word on that, whether the speaker had been informed or what, and he's fled the country. He is in the Maldives, and so you're saying that formal resignation has not come in, and protesters angry that Ranil Wickremesinghe, who now they say they want him also gone, that he has taken charge.
Yes, indeed. Now, what he has used is Article 37(1) of the Constitution, which enables the president, when he is unable to function in the office because of some duties overseas, or whether he was out because of some illness of short term, that he can always appoint the prime minister to act in his place. And this is what he has done. And that is what I am saying, pulling wool over the eyes of the entire country and the protesters who have been disgusted with these two leaders and wanted them to step down from their office. But whereas they are now resorting to this subterfuge and are using the forces to forcibly put down the protest and take charge, ignoring all the democratic norms. So this is, and I of course feel as democratic politician that we must try not to resort to violence. In the meantime, it has, some unruly elements are also misbehaving themselves. It is true. But then vast majority of the protesters are peaceful protesters, and then they have been angered by this deceitful action by these two leaders who are disgracefully hanging on to their positions when the entire country wants them to quit.
Right, so though the timeline that that was said earlier was that today is when the president would resign, and then 15th is when parliament would reconvene, and by the 20th you would elect another president. There would be some kind of all-party government in place?
No, in the meantime, I think the speaker is also acting in concert with these two deceitful leaders, and this morning we got text message from Parliament saying the party leaders meeting which we had demanded, which was originally fixed for today, which has been now postponed, which was later postponed for tomorrow, has both been cancelled. So now he is acting on the dictates of the Prime Minister, who has now been also anointed as the acting president, and cancelling even the party leaders meeting. So even the parliament will not be able to convene anytime soon unless a party leaders meeting is summoned and the agenda is agreed upon. So all what was discussed on the earlier date in the party leaders meeting to summon and also have conduct an election by Wednesday next for the vacant office of president, expecting the president to resign, have all been negated by all this collective action that have been taken both by the president, the prime minister and speaker. All three are guilty of defying what has been already agreed upon And now that is why the protesters are so angry, and we opposition politicians are even further outraged by this conduct of
Right,
our
sir. So
leaders.
what is the opposition now planning if you feel that, this entire timeline that was there has all been, thrown out of the window and the Prime Minister has taken charge? You're saying that and the President has not resigned. So what is the opposition now planning to do?
No, opposition will be meeting this because now they have declared a curfew as well. The emergency has been declared all over the country. Curfew has been declared, preventing even the opposition from meeting. But we will defy all that, and then we will somehow get together, meet, and strategize as to what we will do, and we will take them on, because we just can't bow down to this type of strong arm tactics of totally disgraced and disrespectful and dishonored government. We will not bow down to this type of tactics which is being used. I am sure they will all be disgraced very soon and will have to be held accountable for what they have done.
And so what is currently happening in the streets of Colombo? We saw huge security deployment and tear gas being used against protesters. So for the moment, have they dispersed? There are visuals earlier of them marching towards the Prime Minister's office. But since then, tear gas being used also. Emergency having been declared, having been imposed in Sri Lanka.
Then obviously the forces have been called out to the streets in order to enforce the law and order. On the pretext that there is a serious breakdown of law and order. But as a matter of fact, it was not a serious breakdown of law and order. It was only very, very peaceful protests. And these protests the protesters also have been given assurances by these very leaders who have now resorted to the so-called legal orders under an emergency. The emergency have been declared, which is, in our opinion, is to protect themselves. The ruling cabal, as they are, wanting to hide behind the constitutional powers they have nominally to protect themselves and their families. This is not to protect the country, and this is going to drag the country into further chaos and nothing but that. And therefore, we believe and we appeal to all right-minded Sri Lankans to resist this type of dictatorial attitude towards very peace-loving protesters.
Right, sir. And when you're saying that Ranil Wickremesinghe taking charge as the president is something they didn't want, so what would the opposition have wanted right now? If your president has fled, there would be a vacuum, wouldn't there, if the Prime Minister too were to step down?
No, Prime Minister, if the Prime Minister steps down, the Constitution provides for the Speaker to take charge in the office of the President. And that was what all of us were expecting. But Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe continuously maintained that he was not going to resign and he wanted to remain in office in order to protect the Constitution. And that is totally a canard that he was trying to yarn to give that impression that he was out there to protect the Constitution. All that is not acceptable to us, and people wanted him to quit. And he, in fact, doesn't have the mandate from the people at all. He didn't even get elected to Parliament. He has been nominated on a national list. And such a person is now, he's being used as a stooge to protect the Rajapaksas who have been disgraced already. In fact, yesterday, the president couldn't exit from the country through a civilian aircraft. No airport was willing to allow him to leave the country. And finally, he had to resort to a military aircraft and run away to Maldives. This is a situation. And in this situation, it is disgraceful that this Prime Minister and the Speaker also are colluding to defeat the democratic struggle of the people.
Right, and what news of the president? There was also some reports saying that Maldives isn't his final destination.
Maybe so, but he may have to get assurances from some other capital to give him some refuge or asylum or whatever, or at least entry. These things have to be negotiated, perhaps. So therefore, it's only perhaps a temporary refuge for him Male, the capital of Maldives. So he can, but leave alone Male, here too, he had to be taken away to mid-seas in a navy ship and later into some army camps. This has been the plight of the Rajapaksas for the last 1 month. His elder brother, the former president, and his brother Basil Rajapaksa was disgraced yesterday at Katunayaka airport, where he was refused to leave, refused permission to leave because the immigration officials didn't want to provide the services that should have been provided to a normal passenger. And he wanted to use VIP terminal, and that finally, because of the strike and refusal by the immigration officials here to leave the airport, and this is
Right,
what
so he
happened.
too has left the country. We believe he's gone to the US.
Those matters are not clear yet, and they
I
say
see.
that he had some.
All right. So finally, sir, the opposition, you're saying, despite the emergency having been called, you are all going to meet and devise some sort of, plan going forward.
We will meet. We will not bow down to these tactics of this disgraced president and prime minister and their subterfuges to defeat this struggle of the people. And we will definitely defy whatever curfew that is there. We will peacefully meet somewhere after discussions on the phone, and definitely will take on this dictatorial regime.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us there. Rauff Hakeem speaking to NDTV. He's a Sri Lankan member of the Sri Lankan Muslim Congress. And
இன்றைய முக்கிய செய்திகள்